All right, Australia, it's in your hands if you get the job done against Ireland and Afghanistan, and if you get it done well. That's where this weird and naughty group stands in this year's T20 World Cup. We have absolutely no idea what those top two spots could look like, though New Zealand seem best placed to finish on top. It almost looks like it's the race for second spot in Group 1. England are in it, Australia are in it, Sri Lanka are in it, and Ireland are still in it. Afghanistan have a couple of points too, but in all seriousness, it's a contest between Australia and England unless Ireland spoil the party for Aaron Finch's side like they did previously for Jos Buttler's. This is Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. Feels like almost a holiday for us after the triple header Sunday we had. It's like a holiday. Tom Moody, Robin Uthappa. I'm hardly making you boys work today, I feel.
My second day here, man, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, Tom never complains. He can do as many games. He does it for the love.
The marathon man.
Yeah.
I can cop. You give me 4 in a day. Let's go 4 games in a day.
Don't give us any ideas. don't give the ICC any ideas. All right. But I'll tell you who else would do as many games as we throw at him. Maybe Niall O'Brien, even if it has him getting up nice and early. Rise and shine, Niall.
Morning, my boys. Morning, lads. It's lovely. What, coming up to 7:30 here? Very normal. You've been getting me up at 4 o'clock in the morning the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So this is a lie.
Yeah, this just comes in the way of some golf plans. He's any good, Tom?
I was going to say, we need an interpreter, don't we?
for you, the Aussie.
I'm loving this. Hi, Niall. How you doing?
Robbie, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. You've been busy, haven't you? You're everywhere.
I have. Yeah, here, there, and everywhere.
He's a man in
That's
demand.
the way
All
to be.
former cricketers these days are in demand. But there is a nice little rivalry between the Irish and the Australians. I think there's a decent Irish population in your part of the world as well, isn't there, Tom?
Yes, there is, particularly where I live, Western Australia. We've got quite a few Irish folk, which only adds richness to our little community in Perth, Western Australia.
Yeah.
They're good, friendly people.
Wonderful. This man is made for politics, is Tom Moody. He could just give all those answers just to the T. Perfection. But this is a game that Ireland would fancy. They don't play a lot of cricket against Australia. They've only played the one T20I going into this game. It's at the Gabba, where we saw a thriller between Bangladesh and Zimbabwe yesterday. Thankfully, the weather's going to stay clear. Ireland, I'm sure, backed themselves against England. There's a bit of history there. They've also beaten them before, Niall. Somehow, ahead of this game, it seems like Australia is going to be a challenge too far. Is it?
Well, that's what the history or the stats would tell you. But as Adam Gilchrist on the podcast said, you can throw the stats and history out the window because this Irish team this is already Ireland's most successful World Cup, either T20 or 50 over of all time. So this team in itself is creating history. That win over England will undoubtedly give them a huge amount of confidence. They've had a washed out game against Afghanistan, which is a bit of a blip really because they would have eyed up 2 points there against Afghanistan. And then maybe had a double kind of crack, either Australia or New Zealand, to try and get into the semi-finals. It's a big game. It's a difficult game. They've only ever played once, 2012, when I was there in Colombo. And Australia haven't played that well to date. So you fear, as a neutral, that Australia are going to fire sometime very soon, and it could be tonight.
All right. They win the toss. I wonder if it's an advantage or not. Sometimes I'm not sure captains know what's best, given the track record in this World Cup, the trends and patterns, Tom. But Ireland are bowling first at the Gabba?
Yeah, well, just reading up a little bit on what Michael Clarke has said on the pitch, he did say it's a new surface. It's certainly a different one to what they used yesterday. And he said he thought it looked a bit dry, so he was talking about batting first. Interesting that Ireland have opted to bowl first, but I think Aaron Finch also sort of indicated he would have liked to have bowled. But I think that's more to do with their position and potential ways they'd like to win it. Yes, of course, they've got to win it first, but if they get themselves into a position where they can win it quickly and improve their horrific net run rate, it's a win-win.
Yeah, let's cast our eyes again on that points table. Aaron Finch saying at the toss that it's not something we can think about. We've got to get the job done. If the opportunity presents itself, then we'll work on that. But that net run rate is a poor one. It's minus 1.55. It's the worst among the teams that are locked on 3 points. And with due respect, it's games against Ireland and Afghanistan, and it could, in all likelihood, be a net run rate tiebreak that we see for what could be a second spot in that group. Do players genuinely not think about net run rate? especially in such a situation now where it's inevitable it's going to come in.
No, you do. I think as the tournament progresses and you start thinking about the net run rate as well, and especially if you find yourself behind the 8 ball like Australia have in this situation, that's always going to be in the back of your mind, knowing that, and that's why I think even Aaron Finch would have liked to chase the score as well.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they're batting first, but I guess if you want to improve your net run rate, chasing is the way to go.
Chasing is the way to go. To be able to do that.
Far easier to do it that way. And Aaron Finch at the toss is not going to be, you're saying I'm a politician, he's not going to be certainly saying, oh yeah, look, we want to try to smash Ireland here and, improve our net run rate. He's going to be very political with his answers, ball at a time. We're taking this ball at a time. And all that
you make a very good point. Why don't people speak like that? Why don't cricketers just say that? Right, just say, we're going to just, steamroll Ireland and we're going to smash them and try and win by 100. Why don't you say that, Tom? If the Aussies won't, nobody will.
Yeah, no, look, you don't want to sort of trip yourself up, do you? There's no
and
point
they've kind of picked themselves up a lot over the last few years.
Tempting fate, like it's like going out there, so of course I'm going to get 100 today.
Yeah.
What do you expect? You might think that internally, that you're feeling really good about your game and, yeah, you can see a big one, right around the corner, but you're not going to voice that because you're, potentially,
Yeah. If only more people were like the Irish, right, Niall? This sort of language is too parliamentary for your liking?
Correct. You should just say what you feel. Andy Balbirnie should have said, yeah, first, we want to roll them nice and cheap, knock them off in the power play, get our net run rate up. That's what Balbirnie should have said. Perfect.
And he's supposed to be the most diplomatic of the Irish. That's how they make them captain. Right. All right. But let's in all seriousness, get to playing 11s. Australia make a change. We haven't seen Australia on the field. They have to sit on that terrible day, the weather at Melbourne, and watch their game against England get washed out. But Adam Zampa's recovered. That's nice to see. Missed after being tested positive for COVID and having some weakness and symptoms. But Ashton Agar would get just the one game therefore. There's a lot of chit-chat around Pat Cummins, Tom, and whether this is the best makeup of Australia's pace attack. It looks like that's the team they've trusted.
Yeah, well, they're backing him, but interesting enough, Aaron Finch said at toss around the possibility of playing 2 spinners.
Yes.
So that would have put Pat Cummins, I would have thought, under threat with his position. That may have something to do with the dryness and the surface that that was discussed in the pitch report. I don't mind the idea of 2 spinners because Australia have also got the all-rounders. Now Mitch Marsh is bowling again. You've got Stoinis that can bowl. So you've got plenty of pace options or medium pace options. The one person I think is unlucky in that Australian setup is Kane Richardson. I just think he is a very clever, skillful T20 bowler. Pat Cummins has... we all know what he's capable of doing with the red ball. He's a phenomenal test bowler. He's a very good 50-over bowler. Yes. I think T20 cricket, I don't think he's as good as his reputation is in the other formats of the game. So I'd personally be considering definitely Kane Richardson or that second spin option.
Robbie?
I actually tend to agree with that. I think he's in this squad more on reputation than on skills, so to speak. I think very similar to Steve Smith, he hasn't cracked the code with T20 cricket.
Yeah.
I think they're exceptional one-day and test match cricketers, but they haven't really nailed that T20 cricket for themselves.
I find it interesting that Australia, we consider them to be ruthless in selection, Tom, and if Steve Smith doesn't cut it, if there are better batters for this format, they play ahead of him, even if he's in the squad. With Pat Cummins, do you sense there's something unusual with Australia, that if he wasn't Pat Cummins, the package, test captain, prolific ODI bowler, guy who can bat down the order, all that, if he was, say, just young in his career, then they wouldn't have thought of it this way. It seems like at odds with how Australia tend to select.
I think historically they've been ruthless with selection, but I think at the moment we're in a phase where we're not being as, I suppose,
Australian.
Yeah, well, ruthless. I'll use the word again in that. There's some tough calls that could be made. One's Finch. We've talked about Finch, his form. I found it interesting listening to a bit of dialogue over the weekend in Australia from a few experts talking about Finch and saying, well, if he doesn't get runs against Ireland and Afghanistan, if they do win those 2 games and qualify, they've got to make a change in the semi-final. I find that quite odd that, if you're thinking that way, the decision should be made now to allow that person that's coming into the side, those 2 games to get set ready for finals cricket. You don't want to be making a call come a semi-final because you're waiting for someone to come good, and you've been waiting for a long time for that person to come good. So, you know, it's interesting. Yeah, I know he's captain, but I think there's other solutions in the team with regards to captaincy and leadership. Yeah, Australia are yet the finished product. You certainly couldn't be, pinning them as favourites, I don't think, regardless of whether they're playing at home or not. But then again, in the UAE, where they won the T20 World Cup, it was exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are saying, oh, no, this Australian team's not quite right. They're not quite clicking like they should be clicking. They won the trophy.
I genuinely think there's a lot more than meets the eye with this Australian team. I think we're not privy to a lot of what's going on within that side as well, and I think a lot of that's also showing up on their performances. And I think with a few conversations that I've had in the past, I feel like the Australian cricket have a few things to kind of mend, because they haven't been as, like, from the outside, for an observer from the outside, they haven't been as Australian as they normally have been or have been in the past. You know, I feel like the players have been mollycoddled to an extent, if I may say so. But I think if anyone can do it and come back to their own set ways and patterns, it's Australia.
Yeah, you still think, if you ask the other semi-finalists, would they rather have Australia in the semi or not? They definitely say we don't want them, especially I think they've been designated to play their semi-final at Sydney. Now we're bringing up this conversation, quite a nice, ruthless conversation around Australian cricket. Niall, are you just shaking your head and say, don't say it today? You just, they're just going to come out and, they're going to beat us left, right and centre. Are you enjoying this conversation, Niall?
Well, you know from the last 4 or 5 chats we've had on this show that I love a contest. So, you talk about Aaron Finch, who's definitely out of form, tried to find some kind of form, excuse me, in that run chase against Sri Lanka. When he just, he basically just patted it back and got bailed out by Marcus Stoinis. Australia's net run rate would be a lot worse, actually, if it wasn't for Marcus Stoinis' heroics in that game. So the likes of Josh Little up against Aaron Finch. Aaron Finch can't just find his way into form in this game. He's got to come out all guns blazing. So that's going to give Ireland an opportunity. So for Ireland, it's one of those, we call it a free hit. Nobody's expecting Ireland to win. They've got ball in hand. They've got some good bowlers up front with the new rock. There is a short boundary one side, so that's probably why I think Australia probably should have played 2 spinners, because if you look at Ireland's history against spin, whether it be wrist spin or finger spin, that's their weakness, that's their Achilles heel. They showed against England they can play pace nicely. They smashed Chris Wokes. Mark Wood got hit for a bit, although he got a couple of wickets. So pace isn't the problem for Ireland. The spin, playing against spin is where they come a little bit unstuck. But for Ireland, chance again, just go out and show themselves. I played in that game in 2012. There's 5 Aussies who played in that game, and there's only 1 Irishman. So this old Australia team are there for the taking.
Anything
I wish I understood it.
God. All right. I love it. But just to put in perspective some of the things that our panel is bringing up, Pat Cummins' numbers, let's just throw up to round off that chat. It's also a dilemma to understand where he should be used in this format. What's his best use? Those averages aren't great. The economy 8 in the power play, round about the same in the middle, and over 11 at the death. You also look at an interesting stat here, Tom, and I wonder if this is the kind of thing that would ever be brought up or would get to Pat Cummins. The frequency of being the most expensive bowler in T20s in your team, and Pat Cummins is 3rd on that list at 36.7% of the time. Is that at all the kind of stat that you think is relevant? I mean, Tim Southee's on that list, Harshal Patel's on that list. Is that at all a relevant stat for a player?
Not really. I think what's more relevant is how they fit into your team and the balance of your side and what role they play in your side. Pat Cummins, looking at those numbers, is not playing a role as a finisher because his record, at the back end of the innings is not a great record. His record as a strike bowler in the power play is also not a particularly good one, which surprises me. Because if you think he's going to be a threat at any point of the game, it's going to be with a new ball with the class that he possesses. So again, he hasn't got the strike rate that you'd expect in that power play. So to me, the middle overs are the easy overs, and I'd much rather have someone in the side that can bowl those middle overs, but can contribute to either the top
or the death
or the back end. So the bookends are the critical part of the 20 overs. most people can fit in the middle.
If I ask you as a batter, what makes Cummins easier? For the lack of a better way to put the question, but batters clearly fancy getting runs off him. But what makes Cummins a relatively easier bowler to attack in T20 cricket?
So I think his actions makes him a little predictable, as in because you know that he's got a little bit of a jump that goes away, and then you know the ball's going to predominantly come here, and he's going to bowl the ball in most of the time. He's developed an outswinger that straightens, but if you come inside the line of the ball, you suddenly find like you have a large area to kind of take him down. So for me, I think when I plan a play Pat Cummins, is always try and get inside the line of the ball, so that just you'll be helping the ball along, and then if he bowls even further wide, then you know that this option is always there, and you know that consistently more often than not he looks to pitch the ball back of a length, so you can stay deep in your crease and you can use that shot, the flick sometimes, or not the scoop, but the pickup.
And very quickly, Tom, knowing the ability he possesses, is there nothing that you could say to him to perhaps make him more of a threat in this format? It seems like there's a sameness to Cummins. This conversation's been had for a while now.
Well, without sort of being in the inner sanctum and talking to him about his philosophy on bowling in T20 cricket, it's very hard to really make those recommendations. I'd love to sit with him, and with the coach's hat on, and just sort of ask him, exactly, where he feels he best fits in the side, and where his strengths are in T20 cricket, and where the areas he feels he can improve. And then you take him down that pathway of trying to improve those areas, make some suggestions for him to consider, and move from there. You've got a pretty good skillful player to work with. It's like having a Rolls Royce in the garage, but it's just not starting at the moment. It only needs a little bit of fine tuning, and he's up and running.
On the other hand, Josh Hazlewood's curve in T20 cricket has just been an upward one in recent times. And here's a player who didn't make England's ODI World Cup squad at the last in 2019. We thought he's only a red ball bowler. What a white ball bowler has turned out to be. 47 wickets in 30 T20Is since 2021, averaging 17, economy of just around 7, striking at 14. Same question for Hazlewood. There's a different challenge here. He's a much more difficult bowler to face in this format.
Yes, I think, and for me, he is someone who's actually cracked that code for T20 cricket, right? He knows within his game, he's made a few changes, and we worked together in the 2021 IPL at CSK, and the skills that he's developed along the way has been exceptional. He's backed his skills, and he's worked very hard on them. So I've seen from very close proximity as to what he does and how he operates, and he's a very much improved death bowler. I think he bowls a lot better in death since 2021, since much before that, right? So for me, I think he's an improved bowler who understands his skills and how he's going to execute them in T20 cricket.
Yeah, I find him a really interesting case, and you look at what Hazlewood's done, you can see Pat Cummins could easily follow that path. There's no question of that, because we were having the same conversation about Hazlewood 2-3 years ago with white ball cricket, and now he's just taken off. What's interesting with him, and some words that Glenn McGrath had said to me many years ago about bowling and white ball cricket, and this doesn't relate to T20 cricket because it was before really the launch of T20 cricket, but the question was, what do you do when someone's taking you on in 50 over cricket, trying to slog you out the ground? What do you do? And he said, I just hit my area even harder. And that's exactly what Hazlewood does with that new ball. It's like he knows his strength. He's 6'6", he's strong, he can bowl 140. He just hits that area, his length, even harder. So he doesn't try to do anything more than back his strengths. And if he can, someone can hit him off that length continually, well, good luck to him. They've had a good day out. He knows that, they might get a 4, they might hit a 6, but the next one will go straight up in the air. He's got 1 for 10, 6-4, 1 wicket. Thank you.
All right, fascinating insight into what's worked for Josh Hazlewood and what's still to be figured out for Pat Cummins. Let's quickly have a look at the Irish team, which is unchanged. They also had to sit out a game against Afghanistan. Gee, they'd have fancied that game after beating England. But Fionn Hand stays in that side, and what looks like the extra seam option that Ireland have gone for. Had quite the game against England, Niall, so no surprises that Ireland are unchanged from that win?
No surprises. They've had a bit of time off, obviously, with the washout against Afghanistan and travel to Brisbane. The team's in pretty good spirits. Batters are in form. Tucker's looked good at number 3. He needs to cash in now and crack on and get a 50. But Balbirnie and Sterling have found touch. The only area they probably need a bit more out of is that middle order, the likes of Mark Adair, the lower middle order, Gareth Delaney. He needs some runs with bat just to add a little bit more depth to the batting lineup. But all in all, pretty good. Nice to see Fionn Hand get another crack. He's a talented young kid. Obviously, hot off the wicket of Ben Stokes. It's a wonderful ball to get rid of Ben Stokes at the MCG. So all in all, it's a pretty good team actually. Ireland are very settled. They don't change it very often, and Heinrich Milan is pretty happy. But they're going to need early wickets, I think, against Australia. Josh Little is the key with the ball. He'll be aggressive against Warner and Finch.
Yeah, and he's got a great record against right-hand batters. Does Josh Little. Averages just over 21, but that strike rate is 17. Economy pretty good, 46 wickets, and bowls a large percentage of those overs too against right-hand batters. He's also got a right-hand batter who we can't perhaps discuss enough. Aaron Finch is one of those captains whose form is under the scanner. He's under fire himself. As we look at numbers for Aaron Finch, tells you with every game it's just getting harder and harder. In fact, the longer he bats, perhaps the worse the argument is, as we saw in that game against Sri Lanka. He also averages just over 11 at the Gabba, which is something that you necessarily don't want to look at if you are Aaron Finch. Australia have got a very good record at the Gabba. That having been said, they won 5 out of 6 there. Australia genuinely have a good record at the Gabba in most formats, but an 83% win rate for the Aussies in this at this venue. The Finch conversation. Can we just ignore it, or is it relevant? It's something that even Ireland would be discussing, and I'm just trying to think of what Aaron Finch at this point, would be thinking leading this side with all the chat around his form and his position in the side.
Look, it can't be ignored because it's been talked about in every cricketing corner around the globe. What I find, a great credit to Aaron Finch is his resilience to all that, outward noise. We've all been in that position as former players where you're getting, criticised for form or whatever it might be, and it takes some real mental, toughness to be able to sort of weather that storm. And this storm hasn't just been, a day or two. This has been like the Melbourne weather. It's been hanging around for a long time. So I tip my hat to Aaron Finch and his resilience to it. And I ideally hope that we see the best of Finch purely because it's nearly like vindicates his determination to stay in the contest. He's not prepared to throw the white towel in quite yet. So, let's hope for Finch's sake that he managed to turn that corner. But I'm intrigued to see the contest between Josh Little and Aaron Finch because that is your ideal, matchup. Yeah. Left arm pace that can swing the ball back in to the right hander. We all know that Aaron Finch can fall over that offside with the ball coming in. It's going to be intriguing power play.
Yeah. You've played in a Pune Warriors side, I think, that Finch was captain at, wasn't he?
Yeah.
How do you sense this
first
period?
Time he got a leadership role at that point,
Yeah. How do you sense this time would be for him, for Aaron Finch?
Well, it's going to be hard for any cricketer because I think what we do is eventually a job, but our job's on display for the world to look at and criticize. So when we have a bad day, and he's had quite a few of them in the recent past, and so it must be really hard on them. And I have to say, and I agree with Tom, I think he's exceptionally resilient to not allow a lot of that chatter to get in, or how he's managing and dealing with that. Having said that, I think this is make or break for him. This tournament, I think his one-day retirement was on the back of his lack of performances, and I think this World Cup will be make or break for him.
Okay, well, I think this is not going to be the last of the Aaron Finch conversation that we have, but given everything that's being said about him, maybe Niall O'Brien can give me a lovely summation of the best possible chirping that could be going around Aaron Finch, given everything we've discussed. What are the Irish going to be saying? Niall, take it away.
Well, I reckon they'll get into him. Behind the stumps, Lorcan Tucker is not shy. He's quite a very well-educated wicketkeeper. They're few and far between. He's got a master's in Trinity University, so I'm sure Lorcan Tucker's got something up his sleeve. For Ireland, Josh Little will be aggressive. Mark Adair, he might have a terrible moustache, but he's got some good sledging. So I'm sure they're going to get into the Aussies. 10 years ago, Australia, they were really, really aggressive in Colombo against Ireland. They hammered Ireland that game. David Warner and Shane Watson absolutely abused Paul Sterling, Kevin O'Brien, and a couple of others. And And then when the Aussies came out of bat, Ireland got stuck into David Warner big time. And David Warner went to the square leg umpire complaining he was getting too much stick. So there we go. There's a bit of history.
All right, brilliant. David Warner is out there along with Aaron Finch. Game's underway. Let's get a quick first innings prediction. Niall, come on. Ireland, what are they going to keep Australia down to?
172.
I wonder if that's a down to. Tom, would you take 172?
I was thinking more sort of 183 personally.
All right, Robbie?
I'll go between them, 175.
Okay, it's a 172 to 183 sort of game, according to Robin Uthappa, Tom Moody, Niall O'Brien. Let's pick up the chat. The end of it all on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout. Before I leave you though, why don't you go and check out the all-new Cricinfoverse with Grand Vitara, where you can build your own avatar, take a virtual tour of the Cricinfo studios and plenty more. So just head over. You can also have a look at the all-new and very impressive Maruti Suzuki Grand Vitara. Join us at the end of the Australia innings to see where things stand. Look forward to your company then.